why do you personally hold XRP? That question was front and center in a recent discussion between Mike Novogratz, he's on the left in this clip, and Natalie Brunell, she's on the right. The conversation was shared by fellow XRP content creator Crypto Eddie, and it runs for about 5.5 minutes. Think about that. An entire 5.5-minute exchange about why XRP exists. Yet not a single reason mentioned had anything to do with its technology or the real-world utility it offers. Not one, zero, nada. Honestly, it's absurd. This kind of thing really grinds my gears, folks. Here's Mike Novogratz, a guy who spent the better part of the last decade predicting that XRP would crash and burn. He had his arguments for that. I'll get into some of them in a bit, but the fact is, he was wrong. Eventually, maybe a year and a half ago, he seemed to accept that XRP isn't going anywhere. But his entire explanation for its existence, community, that's it. According to him, XRP survives because there are people out there who buy it. End of story. Sure, the XRP community is real. No argument there, but come on, that's the only reason. No mention of its actual use case? No acknowledgement of the technology behind it? Why do you think we're here? I'll tell you why I'm here, and I'm pretty sure many of you share my reasons, and yes, it's tied directly to XRP's utility. Then there's Natalie Brunell, and honestly, she's one of the most toxic voices in the crypto space. She's never made a real effort to understand the XRP ecosystem. Instead, she leans on her personal biases, constantly trashing it without even looking into the facts. It's exactly the opposite of how you'd expect a professional adult to behave. She's extremely tribal about her views, and it shows. So when you have two people who clearly don't understand XRP sitting there and explaining why they think it exists, it's hard not to laugh and roll your eyes. I'm going to share my take on all this, and you can tell me yours in the comments. Before I go further, I want to make something clear. I'm not a financial advisor, and I don't have a background in finance. I'm just a guy who enjoys making videos about crypto as a hobby. Nothing I say should be taken as investment advice. Don't buy or sell anything just because of what I say here. I've got the full transcript of that Novogratz Brunell conversation. I'm not going to read it all, but I'll give you the opening exchange and then summarize. Essentially, Mike spends over 5 minutes talking about how XRP exists because of its community in the East, and because it's the third largest crypto by market cap. It's the entire argument. Here's how it started. Novogratz asks Natalie, "Why do you think XRP still exists?" She replies, and I quote, "Because they have a great marketing team and a lot of money." They, meaning Ripple, almost certainly. So apparently Ripple's marketing team pulled off the ultimate trick, convincing millions around the world to buy in. According to her, we all just fell for the hype. Again, so apparently. According to Natalie Brunell, the whole reason XRP exists is because Ripple has piles of cash. Really? That's the big reveal? They tricked us into buying XRP just because they have money? What kind of logic is that? And here's the kicker. Mike Novogratz doesn't challenge her on it. He simply asks, "Where do you think that money came from?" And Natalie drops a whopper of a wrong answer. She claims it came from selling XRP in an ICO, folks. There was no ICO for XRP. None. Zero. The very first ICO in crypto history was Ethereum, and that didn't happen until years after XRP was created. Ethereum did their ICO to raise funds to build the network. XRP launched at inception. No public coin sale, no fundraising event. How does someone claim to know so much about crypto, hold such a deep dislike for XRP, yet miss a basic historical fact like that? Here's another one. XRP is one of only 3 digital assets that has never dropped out of the top 10 market cap rankings, the other 2 being Bitcoin and Ethereum. Out of tens of thousands of coins, only those 3 have held that spot since launch. But Natalie, she doesn't seem to care about facts, just dislikes XRP because feelings. Novogratz then chimes in, saying the XRP community is just as passionate about their token as Bitcoiners are about theirs. Fair enough. But then Natalie has the nerve to say, crypto has gotten to tribal. Really, Natalie? Do you not see the irony? You've spent years picking fights with XRP holders, blocking anyone who politely presents facts you don't want to hear, and acting like the conversation is over the moment you're challenged. That's not just tribalism. That's willful ignorance. And yet, mainstream media keeps putting her on national TV as if she's some brilliant authority. It's laughable, the reality. She's utterly out of her depth when it comes to XRP. Then Novogratz makes a broader point. Communities are tribal. Even mentions he's got a Bitcoin tattoo. I don't actually disagree with him here. Yes, community matters. But the original question was, why does XRP exist? And his entire answer boils down to, because it has a community. That's just one bullet point in a much bigger list. He compares it to traditional companies saying, you don't see Oracle. armies online, but you do see an XRP army. Sure, we care about XRP, but there's no acknowledgement of why we care. The actual tech, the use cases, the utility. So yeah, I listened to all of this, and Natalie was insufferable. As always, Novogratz. He's a billionaire, runs a successful firm Galaxy, and invests heavily in crypto. Yet when it comes to XRP, he shows zero understanding. How is it possible to be that successful in this space and still not grasp even the basics of why the XRP community exists? After CryptoEddie posted the clip on X, I responded publicly. I even tagged Novogratz. He's got 486,000 followers. And I wrote, I agree with Mike about the importance of community for crypto. But how can he and this hyper-tribal Natalie Brunell still be 100% clueless about XRP's utility? They've been around far too long to still be this ignorant. Do they really believe millions of people hold XRP for no reason, with no technical advantages, no use cases? It's hard to imagine they're engaging in good faith. With Natalie, I'm sure she's not. Mike, I'm less certain. His delivery makes me think he might actually believe what he's saying, but if that's true, then his opinion on XRP is shockingly underdeveloped. It's just not fleshed out. So I listed just a few real reasons people hold XRP. XRP does what Bitcoin can't. It works as a peer-to-peer cash system. Fast and cheap, which was Bitcoin's original mission in its white paper. But BTC can't deliver because it's too slow and costly. Even if that were the only feature XRP offered, it would still justify holding it. Tokenization of real-world assets. On the XRP ledger today, you can find tokenized T-bills, money market funds, gold, and even Bitcoin via Spin, the bits to bypass. BTC's sluggish, expensive Layer 1 transactions. Major institutional use. All $3 trillion in annual transactions from hidden roads, clearing, and settlement are moving to the XRP blockchain. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. And yes, all of that, the $3 trillion in annual hidden road transactions, is going to be tokenized directly on the XRP ledger. Folks, that's massive. That's not just theory. That's concrete, measurable adoption. That's real utility. And here's the thing. Every single transaction on the XRP ledger requires XRP because that's how it's built. No XRP, no transaction. So when an institution like Hidden Road moves that kind of volume over, they're not doing it for fun. They're doing it because XRP is lightning fast and dirt cheap. It just makes sense. Seriously, this information isn't locked away in some top secret vault. If you've got an internet connection and can mash a keyboard with your chubby fingers, you can find it. So how on earth have these experts not figured this out? It was in the news. And that's not even the only example. At least 7 publicly traded companies have announced they're holding XRP as a treasury reserve asset. Around half of them have openly said they're also using XRP internally, moving value inside their own corporate treasuries. That's huge. Because it's not just about mimicking Bitcoin's digital gold narrative. Sure, they're using XRP as a store of value just like BTC, but they're also getting additional utility from it. Real, operational utility. That's the part that blows my mind. XRP can do everything Bitcoin does, and more. And companies are already proving that. And then there's the SEC v. Ripple lawsuit. Over a dozen companies and organizations filed amicus briefs during that case, explaining how they actually use XRP in their business models. One that sticks out to me, TapJets. If it weren't for that lawsuit, we probably never would have known TapJets was even using XRP. But it turns out they were accepting it as payment for private jet charters, transactions that can run tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. Here's the problem they had. Banks are typically closed on weekends, especially for large transactions. If you want to book a last-minute flight on a Saturday night, good luck with traditional finance. But with XRP, no problem. It's instant. It's cheap, and it works. And guess what? Out of the few cryptos TapJets accepted, XRP was the most used. Why? Because it's blazing fast and practically free to send. But according to the critics, the only reason we hold XRP is because humans like it for reasons. The condescension is unbelievable. That's why I wrote in my post, this isn't a complete list of XRP's use cases, but it's one heck of a starter kit. So either these people are being deliberately misleading, or they have zero intellectual curiosity and are happy to stay uninformed. Either way, it's embarrassing. Nobody's here just for the hell of it. XRP has remained a top 10 coin since day one, alongside Bitcoin and Ethereum, despite years of regulatory attack from the US government. That doesn't happen by accident. I've been holding XRP since 2017. If it wasn't technologically capable and genuinely useful, I never would have stayed this long. Yes, the community is great, but the utility is why I'm still here. So why are you here? Do your reasons line up with mine? Because if Novogratz ever bothered to actually ask the XRP community why we hold, any of us could explain it, and it wouldn't sound anything like what he's saying. And let's not forget, there's now a growing stablecoin ecosystem on the XRP ledger. RLUSD and USDC are already tokenized here, and total value locked is climbing. That adds yet another layer of long-term utility and adoption. Now, years ago, Novogratz argued XRP wouldn't survive because Ripple held too much supply. But many of us, myself included, saw Ripple's holdings as a strength, not a weakness. And with time, that's exactly how it's played out. Its prediction was flat out wrong. The XRP community keeps growing. XRP's utility keeps expanding. Businesses keep adopting it. And Ripple's role in the ecosystem, a net positive. Look at RLUSD. Look at Hidden Road. Look at XRP's use as a bridge currency. Ripple's holdings are being released gradually. Circulating supply grows in a healthy, controlled way, and Ripple has actively contributed to XRP's success. They're not a threat to adoption, they're a driver of it. XRP has been around for over 13 years now. It's an early winner in the crypto space. At this point, if someone still doesn't understand it, that's on them. They should be asking themselves, what am I missing? How have I gotten XRP wrong for this long? Will they do that? No chance. Natalie will keep being tribal and toxic. Novogratz will keep making oversimplified statements about community without ever asking why the community exists. Dumb. Fine with that, because my responses aren't for them. They're for anyone who's open to learning, who wants to understand what XRP is really about. So yeah, maybe it's a little cathartic to call out their narrow, clueless takes. But honestly, that's why we can't have nice things, folks. This right here is why. And as always, I'm not a financial advisor. Don't buy or sell anything just because of what I say or write.